Welcome to Upthinking Finance, a podcast that offers a unique and discerning view of economics and financial planning. Here are your hosts, Emerson Fersch and Amy Lenoble.
Welcome to another episode of Upthinking Finance. I'm Amy Lenoble, co-hosting with Emerson Fersch. Author Jim Rohn once said, "The harvest, which is our life as we now live it, is the result of seeds planted at an earlier time."
So as financial advisors, the preponderance of our work revolves around retirement planning. And to that end, typically we focus on the financial aspects, making sure people have enough money accumulated to generate the income they want in retirement. But there's another side to retiring, and that's the emotional and mental issues and just of a significant transition, really, in a person's life that doesn't necessarily get a lot of attention or a lot of run. So to that end, our guest today is Dr. Sara Yogev. She's a clinical psychologist and author. For over 30 years, she's been providing individual psychotherapy for adults struggling with depression, anxiety, stress, low self-esteem, and work-family balance, as well as providing marital psychotherapy to couples. In addition to the psychotherapy she provides, she also offers retirement coaching and is the author of the book called A Couple's Guide to Happy Retirement and Aging, 15 Keys to Long-Lasting Vitality and Connection.
Coming to us from Evanston, Illinois, it's our pleasure to welcome Dr. Sara Yogev to Upthinking Finance.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here and glad to help.
Yeah, so I loved our conversation about there being plenty of ways to prepare someone financially for retirement, and lots of advice out there, but very rarely do we hear about psychological preparation for retirement. And so our first question is, what are some common mistakes or issues that you see as a professional arise from someone who's not mentally prepared to be retired, although maybe financially sound?
First of all, I want to say that I'm delighted that a financial organization like yours is doing something like that, because my experience is that people really neglect psychological planning and preparation for retirement. They think, if I have enough money, it's fine. I know how to do vacation. I've done many vacations. What's the big deal? So what people don't realize that it's a little bit different with retirement, because retirement can be 1/3 to 1/4 of one's life. And creating psychological security in the same way that people try to create financial security is very important. So I think that the big mistake that I see is that people either don't plan or don't think that it's necessary, or I'll figure it out, when it comes. Or even when they do give some thought, they are not aware of the challenges. And I hope that we'll have a chance to talk about them, because the challenges are both on individual level and on a couple's level, from both points of view. In my book, I try to focus mostly on the couple, but I do have a few chapters that focus on the individual aspect. So very often related to this question is, when do people need to start thinking about retirement? And my suggestion is that for people, as you start thinking, when do you want your retirement to be, start thinking also about that aspect. Usually people, when they are in the mid-50s, late 50s, or 60s, definitely in the 70s, be aware that we have no role models for this extended retirement. I think that is an important aspect. Prior this generation, many times died with their work boots on still on, but with increased longevity, it's a completely different scenario now, and it's important to be aware of that, and that's why it's important to prepare.
That's so good. I didn't think of that, of the difference, that health plays a role and things like that, that there's not really examples. That's a really good point. So, what do you think is the process for mentally and emotionally preparing for retirement?
That's a very good question. And, I would like to, answer that. First of all, people need to be aware that in retirement, uh, there are stages. The first stage is, I call it the honeymoon stage. Wow, I can wake up when I want to. I can do what I want to. All the projects, cleaning the attic, putting photos in the photo albums, whatever, take a trip that I always wanted. All that is just wonderful, and people are usually quite happy in that stage. And that stage can last anywhere between 6 months to even 2 years. But eventually come the second stage, which I call the disenchantment, when people realize that, wow, retirement is a real loss. And I need to deal with the transition, or sometimes even with the grief that is emotionally associated for me with regard to that. For many people, particularly in our society, work defines who we are. It's our identity, and a way to feel useful and productive and effective. And when that is gone, how do I replace it? We have in our society, ageism is still very strong. As much as we try to fight it, it's there. So, and some of it is inside us subconsciously. So how do I feel I'm not over the hill and I'm, not contributing anymore? There is another component here that one need to pay attention to. When you worked, did you have a career or was it a job? And I want to explain a little bit. A job is just a way to go to work, to bring a check, put food on the table, roof over your head, and take care of your meal. Your identity is not there. But for other people that have career, and when I was in academia and I was studying that, we had a special questionnaire that was able to define at what point it's a job and at what point is a career. Where your identity is there, that you think about, about it a lot. It defined who you are. And it doesn't have to be white collar or blue collar. I have seen physicians that for them it was just a job. And I remember a janitor, or what's the correct word right now, maintenance engineer, that for him, it was definitely a career and not a job. He was really so proud that the facility that he was taking care of was so perfectly maintained, and definitely his ego was there. While for some white collar profession that you would expect that it would be a career, it's not necessarily so. They get burned out and they just don't care. So, for people that had career, the transition will be more difficult, and you need to be aware of that. Another component that is important to take into account is whether the retirement was planned and wanted, or unexpected, or sometimes even forced. What I mean by that, if your department was decided to phase out, and you don't have where to go in the company, this is something that was beyond your control. Maybe you didn't even foresee that it's coming. So that would be much harder for somebody that didn't see it. Or sometimes they offer you such a package that it's hard to refuse, but you really had no intention to retire at this stage. So if it's circumstances that are beyond your control, that are, I don't want to say forcing, but, determine the retirement, it's a different dynamic and people have to deal with it somewhat differently.
So I'm listening to this and it's, change is a part of life. We all know that. But this is almost sounding like a death. I mean, it's sort of like, it's potentially, you may know it's coming, but it's not necessarily always going to be what you expect.
Mm-hmm.
And you brought up a really good point about, the offer that's too good to say no to. And I remember a client a few years ago got an offer. She was a teacher and, called me up and was like, oh, they're going to pay me this and that. And, from a number standpoint, it sounded great. But then I finally just said, well, Gene, are you ready to stop working? And then there was the pause. And the answer was no, and that was it. And that was the decision. But so I guess the question is, and I know Amy asked it, but I just feel like it needs to get highlighted a little bit is, how does a person prepare for something that, because you can intellectually know it's coming. Let's talk about the person who's got a defined date and we've been, working with them. They have all the money they need. But how does a person really prepare for that transition?
I think that by starting to think about how they want their life to be. And by the way, when I talk about retirement, I didn't mention that, but the old-fashioned retirement was somebody who worked in an organization for God knows how many years, and then they get their watch or they get their whatever and the big party. I think that that's something that we rarely see nowadays. So there are many ways to retire for one's main job, but at the same time find a different way to be engaged. And for some people, maybe not retiring is a solution or an alternative. But to go back to answer your question is that what's really important is when you start thinking about how your life is going to be. What's my day? What's my week? What's my month? What's my year is going to look like? It's really important to develop a routine that it is satisfying.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into all what we all know about health and sleep and all that kind of stuff. I leave it to other people. But what we know is that when we think about retirement, we also need, and that's why I called the last edition of my book, Couple Guide to Happy Retirement and Aging. It goes together. And you need to be aware of that. And what gerontologists are talking about, that in order to have a successful aging / retirement, there are certain components that need to happen. So first thing that I recently heard if I heard it or read it, Dr. Carrie Burnett, she's a gerontologist, and she is talking about what's important is instead of focusing on increasing the lifespan, increasing the joy span. And I like that term. And, it's so, and joy doesn't have to be exuberance. It can be, contentment.
Amen.
That is important for people to feel. So in order to have that, we need a certain element. We need a way to grow, to continue and grow, to continue to feel that you are learning something. And don't dismiss it, if you're starting to, I don't know, learn to play the piano, would you be a big pianist? Concert pianist? Probably not. But if it's something that gives you joy, why don't you do that? So I really feel that it's important to engage in activities that there is the term flow. Are you familiar with the term flow?
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, you don't feel that time is passing because you enjoy it so much. So think about activities that maybe you've done recently or that you used to do earlier in your life, and try to see them. We hear a lot about purpose. People that find purpose, studies are showing that their longevity is longer than people that don't have a sense of purpose. So for some people, it's not so easy to find a sense of purpose, but be engaged in something that give you satisfaction regardless of the outcome. So to grow and to be engaged in something that gives you satisfaction is very, very important.
Yeah, no, this is great. So here's a question then, and this might be digging into a rabbit hole that we don't have time for, but I mean, is there a certain, you people are labeled type A, type B. I mean, is there like a certain personality type that's potentially more likely to have issues with this kind of a transition versus, I mean, okay, how about this? Are there certain types of people that are predisposed to be able to naturally, just roll into the next phase of their life versus others that are really maybe more likely to have issues, or does it really just kind of get back to circumstances?
I think that it's definitely circumstances, but it's also who you are. If you like to learn new stuff, uh, instead of, people that would be called in psychology thinking introverts, will do very well because they know how to entertain themselves. Those that are more extrovert and need people and activities might have more difficult time. But that's bring me to the second element of what a successful aging required, and it's connection. And I really like to say that it's important to increase the social portfolio in the same way, and to diversify it in the same way that financial portfolio, I'm sure that you advise your client to diversify. What people often find is, and particularly not necessarily, but more so men that have many of their friends at work, that when they retire and they go meet again, it doesn't have the same comradeship. They talk about projects that they are not aware of. They are not being considered as current enough. So you really need to be aware of that maybe engaging in an activity with an organization that will allow you to meet new people would be a good way to do both, grow and contribute, as well as meet new people. Another element that goes with aging is that people shift. Friends move to be closer to their children, and can be in a completely different state, or they are not available because there is a child or a grandchild that need a lot of attention and they are busy with them. So your expectation of connection are going to be different. And maybe we'll talk more about it when we talk about the couples level. But on the individual level, it's important to adjust and be prepared for that. It's like and some families that I had that they expected that the family will get together Sunday lunch, or for some Jewish family it was Shabbat Friday night dinner. And guess what? The grandchildren are busy with sport activities, with other priorities. It's not that important to the parent. And the grandparents are very hurt and upset. So be aware that who you will connect with, how you will connect it with them, will need to adjust and be willing to do that instead of being, upset about it and negative. I think that on both level, on the individual and couple level, it's really important to be willing to adjust and accommodate and not expect that one thing that you decide that in 2025 will hold water also a year or 2 years from now. Circumstances change. Uh, so be prepared to negotiate for yourself on an individual basis as well as for the couples level. And for the couples level, there are three main areas that need to be discussed that, from my experience, are causing most of the friction. One is time together and apart. For many couples, when, particularly the more traditional one, the men worked longer hour, even if the wife was employed, and their activity together was around his availability. Now that he is available 24/7, what's going to happen? In Japan, there is something that they called retired husband syndrome, meaning that the husband expects the wife to be available as it was when he was working, and she's not willing to do that. And he get upset and she get upset, and that bring me a little bit to something that is called gray divorce. Gray divorce is a phenomena that is divorce for people over 50. And while there is no specific distinction between those that are retired or not retired, they lump all the age group together. And we know that divorce over 50 increase while divorce overall rate has decreased and not increased. I have some number here. In 2022, divorce rate for those that are 65 years and older was 15%, which is 3 times more than what it was in the 90s. And 40% of all divorcing individuals today are 50 and older, while it was only 8% in the 1990s.
Oh, good
So
grief.
yeah,
5 times. Yeah.
yeah, it's a really big. So if you want not to be adding to this thing, you really need to have conversation and talk about expectations. How I remember a couple that I saw, he was a very successful consultant. So he traveled a lot. And as an introvert, seeking introvert, he was quite okay with that. She was really looking forward for when he will retire and they'll be together as they are on weekends when he is there. He felt so crowded by her, and she felt so abandoned by him that had to be discussed. It was not that he didn't love her, but he didn't want her to go with him to Home Depot, nor did he want to go with her to the grocery store when she was doing grocery shopping. Her expectation was that they'll do it together, while his was quite different. Um, how much time to spend with children and grandchildren is also very important. For some men, particularly those that for some reason missed a lot of the children activities because of work demand, it is an opportunity to make up for that and spend more time with the grandchildren. It was to the point that for one man, he wanted to go to all the practices of his grandson, while his son had a lot of pain over his father missing when he was in a state competition. And the father couldn't make it and said, when I had such important competition, you didn't make it. And for stupid, practices, you're coming every time. So it can steer issues, not just between the husband and the wife. And when I say husband, wife, I mean all partners. It can bring issues from other generation. So how much time to spend with friends? How often, what activities you do with them, all that need to be negotiated. And there is no right or wrong. There is the preferences. And something that works for you now might not work in a year or two. And be willing to adjust and accommodate and go with how things are changing. So that's one domain, time, that is very, very important.
Thank you, Sarah. That's so insightful. And if I'm hearing you right, it just sounds like there's a lot of discernment and adaptability that is involved. Like when I hear the word
Right.
adjustment, it's like discerning for myself, what my spouse is saying, what my partner, what my friends are saying, how my kids will feel, like my time and all these things, and just being adaptable to that and allowing it. Is what I'm hearing you say. And I just thought that was so insightful. It was so good.
Thank you. But you're summarizing it very, very well. Yes, this is exactly what I meant. I mean, if I can mention another domain that couples often fight about is, it sounds so silly, but it's division of housework. It's in the same way that I was telling couples in earlier stages that the foreplay starts when he empties the dishwasher, not at night in bed. Likewise, it's important to think about how do you want housework to be now that both of you are home. In many families, it's traditional. The woman takes care of the cooking and daily stuff, and the husband do the more seasonal stuff, like in Chicago area, it's the snow and shoveling the snow, or gardening or whatever other stuff. But now that both of them are available, expectation might change. And I remember a couple where he was a quality control engineer and she was an artist, and everything comes slow. It was always kind of upset sometimes that she's not organized enough. So one day she came back from tennis and he rearranged the pantry alphabetically and was so pleased with himself and so happy. And we couldn't understand why she's not happy about that. She had a way of here is this and here is that, and she knew exactly what to go and to pick it up. And it was not acceptable to him and easy to understand why she's not welcoming this organization. Another couple where he decided as a way of learning is to be more involved with cooking. But the deal was if he cooks, she has to clean. And as he was cooking, everything was out. The oil, the salt, the pepper, the spices. So then it was so much work for her to put everything back and to clean. They said, you know what? I just cook. And he was so offended. You wanted my contribution. Why is it that it's not working? So talking about the minutiae, the small detail, and there is no right or wrong. As I'm sure some divorce lawyer have told you that sometimes couples spend God knows how many billable hours over a small item that it's worth maybe $10. And it's the emotional meaning of the item that is important to take into account. how the fact that you take the trash without me reminding you 3 times make me feel versus the nagging. So it's how you experience the item and not the actual item. There's no right or wrong way to load the dishwasher. Yes, might be some way to load it more effectively so more dishes fit in. But accept the way that it is and go with the flow and take each other point of view of what's important to you and what's important to the other. And hopefully, if it was a good relationship before retirement, there is no reason that you won't be able to listen to each other and continue to accommodate and find something that works best for both of you. It might not be ideal. It might not be perfect, but it's satisfying. The contentment that the Dr. Carey was talking about, I think is important here. And another level that you might be more familiar with that sometimes is causing problem for couples is money. Because even when there is plenty of money, I look at the psychology of money and we can see 3 different categories. One is people that are spender, another people that are saver, and the third category of I don't care and I'm not that involved. For the spender, money is fun, money is freedom, money is the ability to do what I want. For the saver, money is security, money is safety. And for the one that doesn't care, oftentimes it's because I don't want to be bothered with that. And anyhow, anything I'll do will not work. So why bother? Now, what happened when it's retirement time and there is no money that's coming in anymore? For some people, their style, the psychological style around money intensifies and become more rigid. For other people, it's completely the opposite. Somebody who was a saver suddenly realized, wow, this is my last hurrah. I want to enjoy it. So I want to go on trips and I want to fly first class, not only business. And it has to be 5-star hotel, not 4-3. And the other spouse partner say, what the heck is going on? She used to pinch pennies and click coupon, and now she wants the princess. So be prepared that there is something that is shifting here. As long as people, I'm sure you can advise them not to go beyond their mean, do what makes them feel good so that they can achieve what they want. Many times couples mistakenly believe we know what we want. We both like to travel, so we travel. And I remember a couple that I saw that, yeah, they had the mean and their dream was to travel in an RV in Europe. So his vision was that they will fly to Europe and buy an RV and tour for a few months. France, Italy, Greece, her vision was completely different. Yes, we'll have the RV. We'll fly to France. We'll do France for a month. And then I'll come back to Chicago and be with the kids and the grandchildren and celebration and stuff like that. And then I'll fly again and we'll do Italy. So for her, it was a completely different vision than what he had in mind. So being aware that the devil is in the details and it's important to think about that, I think is important. Also, when it comes to travel, I want to mention that just because it was so recently, you might need to adjust. You always wanted to go on this trip to, let's say, to Machu Picchu. But as people age, the attitude might not work for them. We had some people that we knew that had to be evacuated with a special ambulance because they couldn't take the altitude. So be aware of that. Or another trip that required to go to a very famous temple that required 2,000 steps. Can you knees take 2,000 steps? No elevator. So be prepared to adjust and accommodate your expectation as well as your spouse's expectations.
So I don't know if this is a question, but it seems like there's something to be said for, and we have this conversation with clients a lot. In fact, we joke that if anybody, we're the people who are not going to talk you out of buying a new car. We'll find a way to do it. But it's because the other side of it, which I don't know how this kind of comes into your, domain here of experience, but these years aren't guaranteed. And I think one thing we've kind of concluded is there's a balance between, I'm 62. I don't plan on retiring for ideally another, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. But we've done some stuff, we've lived some life, we've traveled, we've done things already. And I think it seems like, and I'm maybe this is the question is if and not everybody gets this opportunity, as you said, forced retirement is a whole different deal. But for somebody who's in a fortunate position where they can kind of plan for this,
Mm-hmm.
And has maybe like, a business owner typically has more control over this than okay. It seems as though, if we equate it to landing an airplane, we use that analogy a lot. It's going to be a lot smoother if some of this stuff is already a part of the lifestyle. In other words, is it unrealistic to say that, you can begin living the retirement lifestyle before you've actually retired in terms of a lot of the things you've talked about by doing these things? Because it seems like any kind of a transition is, if you're already sort of living components of it that you can, it's not going to be such a hard adjustment. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You are very, very correct. And for people that are fortunate enough to do that, I highly recommend that. I guess myself included, my husband retired, but he's a infectious disease physician, and he was very involved with pediatric AIDS. So he was invited all over to different meetings all over the world. He had the subunit in Thailand and in South Africa and, in Europe, some places. So if I would go with him on a trip, we would try to add a few more days to the meeting and do some travel and sightseeing, New Zealand, Australia, we added Papua New Guinea, which was a phenomenal trip. But not everybody has that luxury, this ability. For some people, you get 3 weeks vacation and you have to go to visit family and parents and grandparents. And, so for those that can do that, I highly, highly recommend. The more that it was part of your life before, the better it is. And that ring a bell for me, that a question that I was asked recently about moving. For if you don't want to stay in where you are at, and you want to move to, let's say, snowbird that are moving to Florida or to Arizona, to do it all at once, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Why won't you start and you go there for 2 weeks vacation, and then you go for a month and you rent a place before you decide to move because the kids are there and the weather is better or, better or whatever. So to do it gradually and to have it as part of your life is a much better way to go than boom, suddenly in an abrupt way to incorporate something completely new. Yes, that's a wise way to go.
That's so good, Sarah. I think there's so much fruit in the words that you're speaking. There's a lot just even for me to think about. I don't feel I'm anywhere close to retirement, but this is such a fruitful conversation. Thank you. And I guess if I was going to end with one thing, a topic that I think would be great for viewers is just, the idea of retirement, being at a certain end stage of life. I think people might think of, their legacy or what that says about me, what that reveals about me, what I've done and left behind. Is there anything that you could share on that topic?
Yes, that's wonderful. I think it's a great way to kind of like end it, because as we reach retirement and the aging, we become more aware that time is limited, you know, and some people, not all, but many people start asking, how do I want to be remembered? Do I want to be remembered for the thing I accomplished or for who I am as a person? For some couples, it can be even a joint legacy, like they want to, people that, let's say, value education, and they had the means, so they started a, a trust, or whatever the right word for that, that will allow people that don't have the means to get an undergraduate education. And it was done jointly. But on an individual basis, somebody told a friend of mine, oh, Grandma, we'll always remember you cooking. And she was so offended. So that's all that you remember? I hope you'll remember beyond my cooking. And it took the kids a while to explain, no, Grandma, it's the way that you showed our love and your caring and how wonderful. So it's easy to say just cooking, but the cooking has so much more behind it. And for some people, it would be your wisdom that I was always able to come to you and get a straight answer without sugarcoating and know the truth. So lead the last chapter of your life in a way that bear in mind your legacy, how you want to be remembered, and it helps. And enjoy it. That's the main thing, to enjoy it. There will be changes, there will be challenges, whether health-wise or unexpected thing, but I trust that most people will be able to deal with that, and most couples would thrive.
That's so good. It warmed my heart.
Yeah.
So Sarah, before we end, one more plug for the book.
Okay, here it is. The third edition, A Couple's Guide to Happy Retirement and Aging. Enjoy.
Yay.
No, listen, we really appreciate the time. This was kind of a thing that just popped into our mind as we've seen more and more people retiring over the last, let's say, couple of years. And it's different for everybody. You described in as much, with the limited amount of time, all the different considerations and experiences people have. And, it's really a bigger deal. The preparation is a much bigger deal, the mental preparation, than the money, which is ironic because I don't think, at first blush, it's always, well, do I have enough? And I'll just say this for me, what I come away with this thinking is, you retire and your time is coming to an end, but none of us are guaranteed anything. And it just seems like everything you said, it's like you got to take advantage of the moment in the moment, because the one legacy I don't think anybody wants to leave is the one where they have regrets and wishes they did this or wishes they did that within the powers of their flexibility. So, but anyway, it's an honor for us to have you on, Dr. Yogev. You're an expert.
My pleasure.
On behalf of Amy and I, we just want to thank you for joining us today on Upthinking Finance.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Emerson Fersh and Amy Lenoble are registered representatives, and securities and advisory services are offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. The guest speakers and the companies they represent are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Capital Investment Advisors, LLC. Individual tax and legal matters should be discussed with your tax or legal expert. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal.